When you're preserving food or just beginning, you don't have to have everything from your garden. Even if you don't have a garden, you can still learn how to can or ferment food with food that you pick up from the grocery store or a local farmer's market. So I'm doing a combination of that today. Hey friends, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be taking you along as I preserve some food that is from my garden. Some is from an Amish grocery store that's about 45 minutes from my house, and then the rest is from our local grocery store. So the first thing that I am doing is I made a list of, well, this list was in my head, then I made another list that I'll show you in a minute. I made a list of the, hold on, I'm gonna let my dog in so he back. So I made a list of the things from my garden that I needed to use up. So I've had a lot of jalapenos, a lot of cucumbers. My tomatoes, unfortunately, have not produced very much this year. And then I also have a lot of watermelon, and I picked up a lot of peaches. So I looked up recipes after that I wanted to try that I thought my family would like, either from things that we have used like from the store-bought version or just things that sounded fun and good to try. So this book is amazing. This is the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserves, kind of a mouthful. And it has over 4,000 recipes that have been tried and tested and true and that are safe to use. So if you follow directions correctly. So it mostly has water bath canning recipes, which is great for starting out because it doesn't require a pressure canner. You probably already have a pot you could use. And yeah, I'm going to try several from here. I've already tried some that I absolutely love. So I'll link this book below. Highly recommend it. If you're new to water bath canning, I have a post that I will also link below that will explain the whole process, what you need, where to get it, how to find jars for an affordable price. The next thing that I did is I looked for recipes for peaches, jalapenos, okra, watermelon, anything else I'm missing, cucumbers. So in this book I'm trying a peach pie filling because that's something that I can pull to make different desserts throughout the winter. I'm going to make a jalapeno jelly. So my husband loves jalapenos. My jalapeno plant, I only have one, but it's doing amazing, and I don't like cook with them regularly. So I need to use them up and I don't want to waste them. I don't personally love relish, but my husband really likes relish, like on hot dogs. And so I'm going to try to make relish because I have a lot of cucumbers. They've been in the fridge for a while, so they're really not like crisp enough to make into pickles. And they also have turned a little bit bitter because of how hot it is. And so I'm hoping that turning them into a relish will improve the flavor and also just be a good way to preserve them. I've already made a lot of pickles. Peach on my dress, oh well. But the other thing is I went through and wrote some recipes that I had heard of from friends that weren't necessarily in this book. So my aunt makes a peach pit jelly that she says is amazing. It sounds interesting, like using the peach pits, but I don't want them to go to waste. And she said it's one of her favorites, one of my grandpa's favorites. So I'm really, really excited to try that. One of my friends sent me a recipe for pickled jalapenos and carrots, and she said they're really good on tacos and nachos. And so my carrots did not do great this spring. I'm going to retry in the fall, but my husband picked up carrots from the store for me, and then I have tons of jalapenos. So we're going to try that. And that is a refrigerator recipe. I think I put fermented pickles on there if I have extra cucumbers. I've been wanting to try more fermenting because you don't have to go through the whole water bath canning process, but we'll see if I get to that. So I'll show you a close-up of my little journal, what I wrote down. So as you can see on here, I put question marks by the things that I'm not sure. Those aren't really priorities, may not get to that. This is going to be like a couple days process, honestly. So, but I just put them on there to have as a reference point. And then the ones with the numbers next to them, I wrote what page the recipe is on in this book so that I'm not trying to like go back and forth, because it really is a pretty, it gets to be a pretty big process when you get into it. And so I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for myself. So if you can, I would love to know, what are some of your organizational tips? Because I've done it before where I had no system and it was like there was stuff everywhere. So I'm trying to kind of consolidate it and make it a little bit simpler. So I will take you along as I make some of these things, probably not all of them. And yeah, I'm excited. So there's a few things that I need to get from my garden before I start preserving. So the first thing I'm going to do is let out my chickens to get some time to free range. And then I'm going to head over to our garden. I'm going to start by checking on the okra because I really would like to pickle some okra. It's one of my all-time favorite snacks, but I didn't have quite enough. So I'm gonna see if we had more, and it looks like we did. I had quite a few okra that was ready to harvest. I think I have 6 plants right now. Okay, then I'm going to go over to the jalapeno plant. This is my first time harvesting jalapenos, and there were a lot of them. They were still pretty small, but I wanted to go ahead and get. I also picked some basil while I was out and a couple other things from the garden, so I'm just going to take everything inside and rinse it off. I might use the basil to make some pesto later in the week. And I had so many cucumbers in my refrigerator, so I need to preserve those before they go bad. Here's just a little bit of what I'll be preserving today. Okay, so I really like this scale to use for making sure that I have the right amounts of produce, and I will link that below in case you do not have one. I'm going to measure out how many jalapenos I have and see how many of those recipes that I mentioned at the beginning that I will be able to make, because I may not have enough to do all of them, but at least I have a starting point. Okay, there we go. That's close enough. Okay, so what you will see here is that I'm continuing to measure the produce, and then I'm going to look at my recipe book and see if I have enough, or if I'll have to half the recipes, or perhaps I will have extra and I can double up on some things. Oh dear. I'm honestly really clumsy in the kitchen, as you'll see. Okay, there we go. So I've kind of divided everything. I heard from somebody that you should wear gloves when cutting jalapenos. I have made this mistake many times and it has ended with burning skin. So even just from picking them from the garden earlier, I was like feeling the burn. And so I'm going to wear gloves while I dice these up. I'm going to slice them into like 1/4 inch pieces according to the recipe, and then go from there. So when I divided out the jalapenos, I found out that I had enough to make jalapeno jelly, and then I also had some to make pickled jalapenos and carrots. So I'm just chopping that up right now. I didn't have enough to make the cowboy candy, so I'm going to save that for another time. Having a garden really challenges me to make the most of the food that I have. In the past, I would buy jalapenos from the grocery store in a pack of 4, and I would use 1 or 2 for a recipe, and then I didn't know what to do with the other ones, and they would eventually go to waste. And so when you spend months and months growing your produce and see what it takes to get it to produce food, you really want to try to preserve and save as much of it as you can. And so I'm really excited to try this jalapeno jelly and also the pickled jalapenos and carrots. Okay, so what you just saw was me blending the jalapenos with some apple cider vinegar, and I did that until it was smooth. And then after that, I'm putting everything in a saucepan, and I'm going to combine the jalapeno mixture with some sugar, actually a lot of sugar, 6 cups to be exact. And then eventually I'm going to go in and add some pectin during the heating process to thicken this into a jelly. Since making this video, we have tried the jalapeno jelly, and it is amazing. I honestly was really surprised. It's really unique because it does have jalapenos, sugar, and apple cider vinegar, but it's really good on crackers. We've even used it on burgers. There's so many uses for it, and it's surprisingly delicious. So if you have a lot of jalapenos to use up, I highly recommend making this. So I'm going to stir this together, and then I'll set it to the side, and I'll come back to it in a little bit. Okay, next up I am going to start preparing these cucumbers for the relish. So I'm going to chop the ends off, and then I'm going to slice them pretty small and then blend them up. You're supposed to use a food processor, but I do not have one anymore because mine broke. So I'm going to try to make it work with a blender. I typically use my blender similar to how you'd use a food processor. This recipe is new to me, so I'm going to do the best that I can, and we will see what happens. Ooh, you know what? These ones, some of these froze in the fridge and they got soggy. That's not good. Okay, well, we're out a few cucumbers, but I'll give those to the chickens so they're not a waste. One thing that I really love about homesteading is that very little goes to waste. So I used to throw out so much food, either because I didn't cook it or because, I'm not looking at the camera much, but I don't want to slice my finger off, so maybe that one's bad too. Hopefully we have enough. Might make a little less relish than the recipe calls for. So like these scraps can go to the chickens, or I could compost it if I wanted to. Honestly, I probably will compost a lot of this because my chickens don't really like cucumbers for some reason. But you know what, I'm gonna switch my method here because I'm running out of room. I had so many cucumbers in our refrigerator, they were overcooking it, and so I really need to start processing these before more of them go bad. I already lost quite a few of them. The reason I decided to make relish is because, well, one, my husband likes it on hot dogs, and then two, our plant started to go kind of bitter when it got really, really hot. We had like over 100-degree weather for a while, and so I think that will help take some of the bitterness out of it, but we'll see. Huge scrap bucket going on. Okay, so I've I've prepared a lot of the things that I'm going to can or ferment or put in the refrigerator. I still have to do the onions that will go in the relish, but got a good start. Okay, so right now I'm sterilizing the jars. I'm using 3 huge pots. This is actually a pressure canner, but I don't know. I got it in a estate sale, so I'm not sure if it is safe to use, but I can use it for boiling, sterilizing the jars. So I just wash them in hot soapy water, and then I'm boiling them once they reach boiling for 10 minutes. Okay, I am getting ready to make some homemade relish. I am supposed to put this in a food processor, but I don't have one, so I'm just going to use what I have. So I chopped all of these cucumbers into cubes, and then I'm going to put them in the food processor and get them a little bit smaller to make the relish. honestly think that I chopped the cucumbers a little bit too much. I probably could have prevented this by working in smaller batches, but I'm going to make do with what I have. So next I'm going to sprinkle the turmeric. I think I'm saying that right. It's one of those spices that I'm never quite sure. I did 2 teaspoons. After that, I'm going to sprinkle half a cup of pickling salt on top, and I'll just kind of sprinkle it all around. I'm not mixing it in yet. And after that, I am going to put 4 cups of water into this mixture. And in a little bit, I'm going to drain that water out. You want to try to get as much water out as possible. And then I'm actually going to let this sit for 2 hours. So I'm also going to set this aside and work on some other canning projects in the meantime. So while the dill relish is sitting and it's just setting for the next 2 hours, I'm going to get started on the pickled okra. So I'm trying to pack the okra in as tight as I possibly can. I was a little bit short on okra, so I wasn't sure if I'd have enough for the 4 pints that this recipe called for. But I got pretty close. So I packed that okra in, and I had to trim some of the ones that got too long to make sure that they would fit inside of the jars. I had already sterilized these jars in boiling water for 10 minutes. And then after I packed them with okra, I put a hot red pepper inside, and this was actually a garden salsa pepper that I let sit until it turned bright red. They're really honestly so beautiful. And I kind of wish that I would have worn gloves here because it's definitely hot. Like, my fingers were burning for a while afterwards. Oh, and I also forgot to mention that I did add a garlic clove into each of these per the recipe. Oh, there we go. Okay, now you can see I'm de-seeding those peppers, and each of the jars gets half of a pepper. This gave it a really nice spice, but it wasn't too spicy or overpowering. I really, really love pickled okra, but homemade pickled okra is even better than store-bought. Okay, next up I'm going to make the hot liquid that will be poured over top of the okra. It's like a type of brine, and so I'm putting 3 cups of water with 3 cups of white pickling vinegar, and then I'm going to add 1/3 cup of pickling salt, 2 teaspoons of dill seeds, and I think that was everything. I may have added in a little bit of pickling spice because I really like it, but I honestly can't remember for sure. But the recipe doesn't call for it, so that is not necessary. So like I mentioned, I combined the water, vinegar, pickling salt, and dill seeds, and then I'm going to bring that to a boil over medium-high heat and stir it to dissolve all of that salt. Then I'm going to reduce the heat to low and keep it hot until I'm ready to pour it over top of the okra. And then after that, I will go through the water bath canning process to make the okra shelf stable. So after heating the liquid, I'm going to pour it into the okra. You really want to make sure that you pay attention to headspace to make sure that the canning project that you're working on is safe. So I believe that this one called for 1/2 inch of headspace, which just means the space from the top of the jar to the whatever is in the jar below, like the liquid in this case. So sometimes I have to go back and add or take away some of the liquid to make sure that it's as close as possible. Next up, I am going to wipe the rims to make sure that they're clean, and then I will put on the canning lids and rings, and then I'm going to process this in my water bath canner. You have to process it for 15 minutes covered and then uncovered for 5 minutes, and then I remove the jars to cool and will put them into long-term storage if I don't eat them all first. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the dill relish and I'm going to drain it and get as much of the liquid out as possible, and then I will mix it with 2.5 cups of finely chopped onions. These are from my garden that I've had in my freezer for a few months, honestly. And then I'll add 1/3 cup of sugar, 2 tablespoons of dill seeds, and 4 cups of white wine vinegar. So I'm going to mix that all together, and then I'm going to bring it to a boil over medium-high heat, and then reduce the heat and stir it for about 10 minutes before going through the water bath canning process for this relish. I do not like regular sweet relish. I don't know if it's regular, but at least sweet relish that you get at the store. But I tried this, and this dill relish is amazing. So if you prefer more of a sour flavor over a sweet one, I highly recommend this recipe. Realizing those jars, I have jalapeno jelly right here. Push that back. And I have relish right here. Sorry, too many things at once. So in a minute, I am going to put pectin in the jelly in a couple minutes. So I'm going to finish cooking the dill relish and the jalapeno jelly, and then I'll put that into canning jars and process it in my water bath canner. I actually did not get a recording of the processing part because I think my camera died and it was really late at night, and so it's just very similar to the process for the pickled okra that I showed before. And I know that I mentioned I would be processing peaches or preserving peaches as well, but I'm going to have to save that for another day. So I think I got a lot done and made some good progress on preserving things from my garden. It did take a lot of time, but now we will have a lot of things preserved for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for watching, friends, and for coming along with me on a day of canning. If you are not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would love it if you would subscribe. That really helps my channel continue to grow. And if you are interested in starting water bath canning, check out the links below, and there are some links and posts that will help you get started.